I was 37 meters underground the morning I finally understood we were never going home. That was before. Now I'm face down in the listening post, a ventilation shaft junction beneath what used to be Varenholm's industrial district, and the corrugated steel under my body is vibrating. Not shaking, vibrating. A single sustained frequency that lives in the bones before the ears catch it. I've learned to read that vibration the way old sailors read water. One full breath between pulses, then another, wide spacing. An eldest, moving along the coastal corridor. I press my ear harder to the steel. In the dark behind my eyelids, I can almost see it, the thing I've only ever glimpsed in pieces. 2 years ago, 40 meters of left knee joint, visible through fog for 4 seconds before the fog closed. Skin of layered sediment, geological strata compressed into living tissue. Cold teal bioluminescence pulsing through translucent membranes in the joints, slow as a heartbeat. On its shoulders, I knew from records, grew a living forest. Full-grown trees 60 meters tall, reduced to something the size of moss from the perspective of the thing that carried them. Completely indifferent, not hostile, not aware, indifferent, which is, in its own way, the most terrifying thing. I'm 24 now, more of my life underground than above. The arithmetic has only recently arrived at its full weight. 63 people in the burrow, 4 main tunnels, 11 side shafts, beneath the karst geology that the eldest avoid. The burrow smells of rust and tallow and mildew, and 63 people rationing water in the dark. Everyone here knows my name, Solveig Brask, Memory Keeper. Solveig keeps the records, the surface maps, the ledger of what's still standing. Solveig keeps the hope. What they say when they're not being kind. Solveig keeps the account of everything we've lost and pretends it'll balance. Maybe, but somebody has to. The vibration fades. Northeast, along the established corridor. I've tracked this particular route for 4 years, repeats every 11 to 14 days. I pull myself out of the shaft into the junction chamber where Finn Holt is waiting. Pale grey eyes. The particular stillness of someone who's spent years practicing not making noise.
Clear?
And I'm still here.
Clear, 19 minutes before it's fully past the zone. I check my watch. We move now or we wait 11 days. He doesn't ask if this is a good idea. He never does. He goes because I ask him to, which is its own kind of loyalty, quieter than agreement, heavier in some ways. We go up.
Always.
Varenholm above ground has been translated into a different language. The structures are mostly still there, shapes, geometries, but every horizontal surface is covered in bioluminescent lichen, cold teal light rising from the ground, shed from the giant skin, and slowly converting the surface chemistry into something theirs. The air smells of ozone and wet limestone, and something else that has no human reference point. Finn grabs my arm. He's pointing at the old telecommunications relay tower, bent by a proximity wave 6 years ago, but not collapsed. On it, a light. Not bioluminescence, not cold teal. Warm amber. An amber LED. Pulsing. Once, twice, pause. 3 times, pause. Repeating. I count the interval. 47 minutes between full sequences. 47 is a prime number. No standard broadcast uses a prime interval. Someone chose it deliberately. Someone who knew the person who found it would recognize the choice.
Is that a signal?
I stood in the cold teal world and watched that small warm light pulse and felt something I hadn't felt in years move through me, like the first catch of a fire. I was right that someone was alive out there. I was only wrong about what it meant. Year 1 underground. We kept the old rhythms. Davor Kessler's idea: structured mealtimes, rest periods, activity hours. Davor had been a city manager before the emergence. He converted administrative competency to survival competency in the first 3 weeks with a speed that most of us couldn't match. And people deferred to him because they were terrified, which is usually enough. My mother kept cooking. She'd gotten a camp stove and a limited supply of gas canisters into the burrow during the first rush, and she cooked twice a day. Things that braised, things that stewed.
Do you remember?
The smell of it moved through the tunnels, and sometimes I'd close my eyes, and the amber gold kitchen in September would almost be real again. I clung to that, more than I understood at the time.
Year 1. Quiet now.
Year 1 was also when Davor made the first prohibition: no surface access without council approval. He had a reason. The first month, 3 people went up independently. 2 came back. The 3rd didn't. And the giants don't leave marks that tell a story about a single human being. They leave marks that are city-sized. Davor was right to make the rule. I want to be clear about that. Even now, with everything that came after, the rule was correct. It has kept people alive. What it couldn't do was keep people themselves. Back from the surface, 8 minutes after finding the signal tower, Finn and I swept the relay structure's base. Behind a collapsed wall panel, a cache. Folded paper, handwritten in emergency communications shorthand. 2 lists, coordinates, and dates written in future tense. Planned movements, someone working a schedule, and the handwriting, neat, small, unhurried. Unhurried handwriting means somewhere safe to sit. We took the papers and descended. I held them against my chest the whole way down. The council session was 3 hours later. 7 people around the long table we'd built from salvaged planks in year 1. Davor at the head. My mother at the far end, hands folded, expression still as deep water. Finn beside me. Ren Okafor on a crate at the back. He attends everything, always has, watching with those quiet, dark eyes that take in far more than they give back. Davor listened without interrupting, which he does when he's already decided, and is simply waiting for the presentation to end. I laid out everything: the signal, the prime interval, the coordinate cache, the future dated schedule. I kept my voice even. I've learned that even is more persuasive than urgent with Davor. Then he said, in the patient voice he reserves for conversations he intends to close,
I said there was a stable transit window. There were 4 people in that party. They have not returned. 3 weeks missing now.
You did not understand what I'm telling you.
So I want you to
the room went quiet. I'd known about the missing party. Of course I'd known. I maintained the roster. I tracked the surface runs. I'd been telling myself they found shelter, went to radio silence for safety. A reasonable precaution. 4 people don't just... 3 weeks. I'd been telling myself the reasonable explanation for 3 weeks. The previous party went looking for a signal they didn't know existed, I said. We know where this one comes from. We have coordinates. We have a schedule. It's not the same situation. Davor looked at me for a long moment, said nothing, which meant he'd heard me and he wasn't persuaded, and he wasn't going to argue about it further. I was about to stand anyway when the battery radio mounted on the wall, scanning on permanent repeat, 912 days of static, pulled a voice out of the air. Structured syllables, coordinates, the sequence from the tower. The broadcast had come back online, and somewhere, 3 weeks from answering it, were 4 people who hadn't come home. Year 3 was when the amber started cooling in my memories. Not the memories themselves, those held their colour. The September kitchen, the maple, my mother's voice. But when I went there, the feeling stopped coming with them. I could remember the amber, I couldn't feel it anymore. Like looking at a photograph of a fire. That was the first time I understood the threshold might be permanent. Not physically, we all knew we couldn't physically go back, not with the giant's migration corridors rewriting the surface, but emotionally. I understood that even if the surface became safe tomorrow, I'd be crossing into a country I no longer carried inside my body. I filed that away with the other things I don't tell the others. The full council session was 36 hours after the broadcast came back online. 41 adults, 11 Burrow-born kids in the back, the ones who'd been born underground, ages 4 to 18, first generation for whom the tunnels are the only world. Ren Okafor was among them, 18 now. I taught him to read, to write, to remember things he'd never seen. I made my case, the signal, the coordinate cache, the future-dated schedule. That detail matters, I said, because it means someone is planning to still be alive when the dates arrive. The geological formation in the cache's coordinates, karst zone, a transit corridor gap, exactly the kind of place someone who understood survival would identify, someone with the same data I have. The 47-minute interval wasn't an accident, I said. It's prime, non-standard. Whoever chose it wanted to be found by someone who would recognize the choice, someone technical, someone careful, someone like us. I looked around the table. They built this signal for people like us. And the question isn't whether the settlement is real, the coordinate cache answers that. The question is whether we're going to let 4 missing people determine everything we do until we die down here. They're alive, I said. Not just surviving, organizing. We could stop waiting for rescue and start being it. Davor stood. He crossed to his desk and picked up the photograph he keeps there, the one he almost never touches. He turned it over once, then set it back down, facing away from him as always. He sat down. He didn't look beaten. He looked like a man who had already paid the cost being proposed, done the grief, and was finished with the conversation, but not dismissive. He was giving me something by sitting down rather than walking out. He was giving me the vote. I didn't sit. I said, 11 years of staying still has a cost too. It's slower. But it's the cost of becoming something that only knows how to hide. We are people who are temporarily hiding. That distinction matters. I looked at the room. Finn with his careful grey eyes, Ren at the back watching everything, my mother at the far end, still as stone. It has to matter, because if it doesn't, if the hiding is who we are and not what we're doing, then we've already lost the thing we were hiding to preserve.
The decision is not about us.
And then we voted, 21 to 20, 1 vote, in favour. I'd won. Ren's hand had been among the 20 who voted against. Ren, whose whole life I had been keeping the hope for.
I can e-explain. I can e-explain if you want.
After the meeting, just the 2 of us in the side corridor. Please, I said.
You don't have to carry it alone.
You described the surface like it would be going H-O-me. But de-ice is home.
Something arrived in my chest that I didn't have a name for immediately. Not grief, worse than grief. The specific feeling of arriving at a destination and finding the destination was somewhere else all along. I had spent 11 years preserving civilization for Ren, and Ren had never needed any of it. I went to the memory room after. 8 meters square, sealed door, 4 candles always burning. the only amber space in the cold world. Salvaged objects on every surface, a coffee mug with a ferry company logo, a child's drawing in crayon, a phone with a cracked screen, a paperback whose cover had softened from handling. I've maintained this room since year 2, when I understood the cold was winning and I needed somewhere the warmth was a deliberate act. My mother was there. She was sitting on the east wall crate, the ferry company mug in both hands, not drinking, just holding. Looking at it with the focus of someone very carefully not looking at something else. We sat in the amber light without speaking for a while. I said eventually, he voted against. I looked at her.
Because he's righty about what home means to Hayam, and because you can still reach the settlement without it meaning what you want it to mean. The two things don't cancel each other out.
He's 18 and he's never seen sunlight. He can't vote on recovering something he's never experienced. My mother turned the mug in her hands.
The ferry. It was always about the ferry.
I stopped saying when we go back in year 2. You noticed, Beatty. I know you noticed because you started keeping this room more careful.
I sat with that for a long time. The candles burned. The amber light did what it always does. My mother had made a braised rabbit earlier. A burrow-born woman had figured out how to breed rabbits in the side tunnels, and the protein situation had been quietly improving. And apparently Ren had a knack for getting the temperature exactly right. My mother told me about it, the ratio of stock to salt, the patience required. I listened. The candles burned.
And you have every right to feel that.
The contact party leaves in 4 days. 12 of us, myself and Finn among them. We go with the coordinates and the broadcast schedule and 11 years of surface data. We go toward people who've been building something in the karst zone north of the coast. I won the vote. The settlement is real. The hope was not wrong. People survived and built and kept going. But winning didn't restore the before. It created something new. Something that will need to be understood on its own terms. Wen will be here when I return. In the kitchen, learning patience and low heat from my mother. Home, in the place that is genuinely, actually his. I held one of the candles, watched its small flame. The before is real, it happened, I carry it. The way you carry a room inside your body after the building is gone. But carrying it doesn't mean living there. Outside in the tunnels, the subsonic vibration began again. Another eldest, moving along its corridor, cold teal bioluminescence pulsing in the dark above our heads, slow as a heartbeat. I used to listen to that vibration and think, we're waiting, hiding until they go. The disillusionment that is not despair. Now I think, they are not going, and we are not only hiding, we are making something else. Whether that's a victory or a surrender, I haven't decided. I suspect the answer is neither. I suspect it is simply true.